Jujutsu Kaisen is currently facing a very big problem within its manga that I think needs to be addressed. As someone that loves the series, as someone that loves reading this manga week by week, and it is one of the best manga, honestly, I read on a weekly basis. Now, feel free to disagree with me, nothing wrong with that. But I really like JJK. I've liked what Gegi has done with the final arc. I don't think it's been perfect, but I do legitimately think that it's been pretty fascinating seeing where the story is going. There is an issue that is now starting to creep up that I think fans of the story have now started to take notice of, especially with the latest chapter that came out. And let's get right into that. This is the final panel of the latest chapter of JJK. Now, if you look at this panel completely without context, and let's just say you read the chapters week by week and you don't think too much about the previous chapters you have read, besides very critical points, this is not going to really matter to you. You're not going to think too much about this. But if you think about what's been happening for the past 5 to 6 weeks with the chapters, then this final panel of the latest chapter really stands out, and it kind of doesn't sit right with a lot of people, especially me, and it needs to be addressed, because at this point, Sukuna is being built up and glazed to such a degree that it's almost becoming a Madara situation. And what do I mean by that? What is the Madara situation? To explain the Madara situation, it is where a villain is so powerful, and pretty much the last antagonist of the story, at least was the intended antagonist, to where it gets to the point to where they're so strong, their power scaling just gets so high, to where it gets to a point to where it's like, how can you beat them? How is it even possible at this point to beat the character? It becomes almost unbelievable for the character to be defeated. And let's explain. Let's talk about, Madara and why this is a situation like that. Madara was an entity within the verse of Naruto that was basically built up since the beginning. He was a very powerful ninja. He was someone that was basically leagues above all Uchiha. He was strong, like really freaking strong. And when he got resurrected and like his introduction was pretty much launching two like giant boulders from the sky or meteors and just seeing how strong he was, it was just legitimately insane. The community loved Madara. I did as well. He was just straight up badass. Easily one of my favorite characters of all of Naruto. And, just as we got more of him, when he got like resurrected and he had like no eyes at the time, he literally fought the Tail Beast blind. And it's just like, huh? Like, it was legitimately insane. Like, these entities, these beasts that were built up since, like, the beginning of the story, he soloed them with, like, being blind. It's just like, yo, that's kind of ridiculous. And then, like, all that considered, he gets stronger with, like, the different powers and stuff, and it's just like, how are you supposedly able to beat him? And reading the series week by week when it was coming out for Naruto, it was just like a constant engagement. There was a lot of people discussing how is this man going to be brought down, which is very reminiscent of the stuff going on with Sukuna. And at the time, like Madara got just so strong that it's just like, how is he going to be defeated? And Kishimoto wrote himself into a corner to where he had to write this. Now, I'm not going to argue about foreshadowing, if Kaguya is a better character, the Boruto maybe characterization development to Kaguya and all that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking strictly just Naruto, okay? I'm not talking about Boruto or anything like that. I want to talk about what this did. Anyone that was there when this chapter came out, I remember the leaks, I remember the panel that came out, I remember when it came out earlier, and like the non-officials at the time, I remember how it was, and people's reaction to this was just so overwhelmingly negative, it made sense. Yes, in hindsight, Kaguya is stronger and all that, we found out all this type of stuff, but it does not change the fact, at least with the first intentions, I'm willing to bet you Kishimoto made Madara the final villain. And the only way to really deal with him was this backstabbing that Zetsu did to bring in Kaguya. And this was really the only way that he was able to really be defeated at that point. It felt very unsatisfying, and it's just like, really? And it was like, okay, seriously, especially with the character of how Madara really was, and knowing about his personality, etc., it just didn't feel good to the readers of the series at the time. So, we kind of backtrack back to this panel with Sukuna. It's starting to get into a very similar territory. Now, Sukuna is now so overwhelmingly powerful that is just like, it's becoming almost unbelievable for him to be defeated. Now, I'm not saying that the series is going to do the exact same thing that obviously Kishimoto did with Madara for Naruto, but there is only a limited few ways at this point to really bring down Sukuna in a believable fashion that feels good to the audience. And let's explain. So what's been happening? Why is this becoming a power creeper and issue with Sukuna? We gotta think about, like, 20, I don't know the exact chapter number, but like 20 plus chapters ago, Gojo and Sukuna's fight began. And Gojo and Sukuna's fight was incredible. It was, let's be honest, nobody could escape it. It was all over the internet. Everybody's talking about it. Leaks, everything. So, it was a crazy fight, especially since Gojo was built up as like one of the strongest entities. Sukuna was basically built up as like the main final antagonist. It was wild. It was a really wild time period, and seeing who would come out on top, regardless, one side was always going to be upset, Gojo or Sukuna, because just there was massive fans on both sides. It's just how it was. And regardless of how you feel about Gojo's death or whatever about that, the fight was crazy. It was incredible, and after the fight, one or the other was going to be incredibly weak in either Gojo or Sukuna, and then someone was going to jump in probably to fight them. In this case, obviously, Sukuna won, for plot reasons, but also because Gegi does not like Gojo. Like, if you're unaware of this, Gegi actually straight up hates Gojo a lot. So, it wasn't Gojo just fighting like Sukuna and, Maharaga and all that, it was also Gegi. He was literally fighting God. Like, Gojo was fighting God. But, jokes aside, though, or it's not really jokes, it's actually serious. Sukuna, after that fight, it makes a lot of sense for him to be a little bit weakened, a little bit tired after that fight with Gojo, because it's like, there was a lot that was done. In the chapters following after that, it established that, he couldn't really use his domain anymore, his reverse technique output, couldn't really output as much anymore. He clearly was considerably weakened by his fight with Gojo. It was stated multiple times, even in the past few chapters, it was stated that he was definitely weakened. But it was also said that Gojo realized that Sukuna wasn't giving his all. That, Sukuna didn't try, to actually go all out against him, which is just, that's a whole other can of worms I'm not going to even get into for this video. But the point of the matter is that Sukuna was tired, and it was stated. At least by the translations. Unless the translations are off, and there's improper translations, which I read officials, so that's also another discussion. But the point of the matter is that Sukuna was supposedly tired, and after fights with, like, Yuta, taking these big hits from Yuji, the whole Jacob's Ladder situation, now Maki, and then you kind of find out in the latest chapter that after him being visibly tired and really struggling, having to use, like, Wicker Basket and all of that, not being able to use his domain, reverse technique, we have Urame, or Urame, or however you say their name, they basically say that Sukuna isn't trying. The reason why his curse energy output is wavering is because he's just not taking the fight seriously, and it's just like, are you kidding me? Like, are you kidding me? So, he's just weak because he's just not taking it seriously? Like, are you, bro. Like, bro. Now, obviously there is a chance that this could be just a straight up lie. I don't think so, especially with this cliffhanger, the way it's done, with Maki's fight. From the storytelling perspective, it's setting up that Sukuna is about to go crazy against Maki and try to fight Maki, going all out or something. That's what's being implied here. But regardless, this dialogue really is unsettling, because Sukuna has wiped pretty much half the cast at this point. Like, he has demolished most of the living cast. If not killed them, put them in fatal condition, like to where, like, they're about to die. And the only person coming in clutch right now to really save the day is Yui. It doesn't matter how you say it, it's the groomed one. Basically, coming in to save people, take them out, and Yuta obviously gets saved with this chapter, which results in, obviously, him potentially coming back to fight once again. But it does not change the fact, though, that Sukuna is just been built up so much, it's just insurmountable at this point for him to really be defeated. Now, I clearly know what's being written here. I'm not dumb that, what's happening with Maki and Sukuna here is a very reminiscent situation with Yuji when his heart was hurt and all that, and, damaged. We know all about that, what happened at the beginning of the story of JJK. It's reminiscent of that, but it does not change the fact that, after this page, it literally says he's not really trying. It's just like, okay, so it doesn't really matter that he's damaged at this point. And those past 5 to 6 chapters of trying to do damage to him didn't matter either, because he wasn't trying either. So it's just like, you get the point. Now, let's talk about the options. What is available for Gegi at this point to do? There's a few ways this can go. I'm not saying that JJK is bad right now, because it's good. It's a really good series. Even this chapter is great. But this dialogue really sets up a worrisome fact. The options available at this point is obviously there's going to have to be some form of ass pull to bring him down. Simple as that. Some form of plot device, ass pull, whatever, to bring him down. That's one. Second, you have to introduce a new character that is somehow stronger than Sukuna. AKA, let's say, well, not really introduce or reintroduce, like Tengen or something. Come in and wipe Sukuna. A very similar situation to Madara. Kage got introduced, so to speak, to replace Madara. So, that could be a thing. That's option 2. Option 3, which is going to be an interesting option. I don't think it's going to end that way, and I'll talk about that. But option 3 is Sukuna wins. Sukuna kills everybody. You know, Kenjaku gets his plan achieved. Everything happens. Sukuna wins. That's a bad ending, so to speak. Well, not quote-unquote bad ending, but, like, it's a bad route ending, so to speak. Like, you know, the villains win. And, it would be kind of shocking. I'd be honest. If that happened, I'd be like, okay, I'll accept it. I mean, it's not my preferred ending, but, you know, I'll accept it. And it makes sense with the writing, the way it's being set up with, like, Sukuna. Makes sense for him to win. Now, why won't that happen? Why won't option 3 actually happen? Well, this is Shonen Jump. And, I hate to remind everybody this, but, as much as JJK is a dark series, it can be very dark, it kills characters, etc., at the end of the day, it is a Shonen Jump series. And the heroes do need to win. Obviously, there's exceptions. I know there's exceptions, but most of the time they need to win. Yuji's still alive. And the fact that he's alive, he can damage Sukuna, all that, yeah. You know, they're going to win somehow. Which goes back to point, 1. You know, an ass pull or something's going to come out of nowhere to be able to defeat Sukuna. So, all I'm saying is that unless Gegi does some incredible writing, which he has done very good writing, I just don't see how Sukuna is going to be taken down, because he is stepping into that Madara territory at this point. Now, one thing I do want to mention is another thing. I want to talk about the situation with the chapter itself. This chapter of JJK was clearly unfinished. It was something I was wanting to talk about, but I didn't want to open up the video with it because it wasn't the main point of the video. But the chapter is clearly unfinished, and just because I critiqued this chapter, or I'm critiquing JJK as a whole technically at the moment, doesn't necessarily mean I hate JJK. I want to make sure I clarify that. But the chapter was clearly unfinished, and I hope that Gegi is okay, like I legitimately do, because the last time there was stuff that looked like this was, ironically enough, when Maki appeared, which Maki appears again. So, I wonder what's going on there, but clearly the artwork of this chapter was not finished. I hope Gegi's health is okay. I hope Gegi gets some rest or whatever they need to do, take a break or whatever. But, yeah. Also, another thing I want to talk about too besides that is Gojo. I feel like Gegi really hated Gojo just so much that he wanted her to get rid of Gojo so quickly that they didn't really think about the aftermath of what it would actually do to the characters. I feel like there wasn't probably a lot of thought put in that, because Gojo wanted to delete Gojo from the story. That's what I truly think. But I'll leave it at that. Just want to talk about the current problem in JJK. Once again, no hate to the series. Love the series. Great. I'm going to keep reading it. Love the chapter as well. But it's creeping into scary territory. But Chibi out.